Fitheads. Today we talk with Rick Olderman. He's a sports and orthopedic physical therapist. He owns a clinic and he has a way different way of looking at the human body and solving chronic pain. Also, there's a skeleton in this episode.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really fun because it's one of those like, hey, has this ever happened to you where you have this type of pain? And I'm like, yes, every single day of my life. And he's like, oh, have you tried not doing this? And I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah, and the whole posture thing was fascinating. We've learned a lot of things wrong, like how to stand or walk.
Standing and walking wrong. That was a big one. And it was also like, it made a lot more sense. Not like that guy who said I was breathing wrong or drinking water wrong. And he said, or whatever. And back up. This one was amazing. Everyone stop locking your knees.
Welcome to Total Fitheads.
Serious fitness for not so serious people.
Hi, Rick. Welcome.
Hi, Allie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one. Okay, can you give the Fitheads just a background on you and how you got to where you are?
Oh, sure. I'm a physical therapist, sports and orthopedic physical therapist for over 25 years now. And my focus became dealing with chronic pain, but that also was launched out of my interest in acute injuries too. And the reason, the way I developed my own little approach here is that I had back pain before I got into PT school. And I went into PT school thinking, okay, I'm going to learn those insider secrets and finally fix my back pain. And they never came. And really, intuitively, I assumed that my back pain had something to do with about how I was using my body. But really, in PT school, what they were concerned about was what structures are damaged and how to treat those structures, which really has nothing to do about why those structures are damaged. And this turns out to be the key to solving almost all chronic, even acute pain too. And so after I graduated, I worked at a sports and orthopedic clinic. I was a miserable failure because I couldn't help anyone with any kind of chronic issues, right? Because wasn't taught the link between the stress or damaged tissue and the things that were causing it. And so that's what I've kind of figured out for these last 25 years, in my own clinic and other things.
When you say structures, what do you mean by structures?
Yeah. So like in PT school, we're interested. Oh, well, you've got a disc bulge or you've got a disc herniation. So here's what we're going to do to treat that. Or you've got a facet joint arthritis, or, you've got sciatic pain. Your sciatic nerve is irritated. Here's how we're going to treat that. So all of those are talking about structures that are irritated. Tennis elbow, neck pain, bulges, arthritis. But nothing was taught about why those structures become irritated. And that's really the key to solving pain long term, is to understand those things. Mm. And it turns out it's really about how we're using our body, which also creates excessive stresses to those structures, but also creates tighter, weak muscles that are continually putting stress on those structures too.
So how common is it that someone is using their body incorrectly?
Just about anyone with pain is using their body incorrectly, especially if it's chronic pain. And even acute injuries, I find the same things that are causing chronic pain in people are the same things that are behind most acute injuries too. Strains, sprains, things like that, because all of these patterns have been set up in their body. And now that tissue that has become damaged, that's the weak link in the system. That's why it's damaged. And so that's why it's happening.
Yeah, I always really like a doctor once told me that pain is a nice way of your body telling you something's wrong. I was like, oh my God, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, it's not so nice of a way, but it's the only way it has to tell you.
It's a clear way.
Yeah. And so, this is what I found, even with people who have had chronic pain for 20, 30 years, we can get it to go away very quickly, because really an addendum to that is pain is your body's way of telling you something is wrong now. fix that problem now, and your pain goes away now. And it's the same thing. Like if you've ever taken antibiotics for when you were sick, how quickly did those things kick in and solve the problem, right? Or if you cut a finger and it heals within days, break a bone, it mends within 6 or 8 weeks. So we have all the elements in our systems to solve pain and heal. So chronic pain is often an indicator that we haven't understood what it is that's actually causing our pain yet.
Yeah, what I found interesting when I was looking up your stuff is that you have people test for reduced pain right after doing your exercises. And I'm like, that doesn't sound right. I need to take a supplement for a full year before I'll see results.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I do. And that's how I know I'm on the right track. So test, retest, and more, just as importantly, it not only shows me what the problem is, but it shows you what the problem is. Because otherwise, if I just say, hey, do this exercise, you're just like, okay, whatever. I don't know if it's really going to do anything, right? And most physical therapy exercises don't do anything because they're not testing, retesting to prove that that specific exercise is solving a problem. And what you care about is solving your pain. So why don't I prove to you that this exercise will solve your pain? And that's why typically, even with chronic pain, I expect a 30 to 50% reduction in pain after my first visit.
Wow. Yeah. That is not like a supplement.
No, it can be very rapid. I mean, some issues, because some people's issues are more complicated and have a lot of confounding factors, but other people's are not. And so the length of time that you're in pain isn't an indicator of how many confounding factors you have. It's really an indicator that you just haven't found the right information yet.
Interesting. What would you say is more common? I mean, it's sort of a tricky question, but what is it more common that someone had a traumatic injury that they just never figured it out, or that they're doing little stuff every day that's sort of just smashing on someone? And please, I'm very worried about hunching over because I'm at a computer 99% of the day. So do you do a lot of like, here's an exercise to fix this? Oh, and also stop doing that. Is that,
yeah,
is that
of
normal?
course. Yeah. So we solve the things, the habits that are creating the muscle tightness or weakness, as well as solving the muscle tightness or weakness that's causing the pain. So to answer your question, yes to both. So the assumption is, and this is why a lot of attorneys of people who have been injured in car accidents don't want to really talk to me that much, is because, just because you're out of pain doesn't mean your body's working perfectly. I mean, I can screen lots of people who have no pain at all and find lots of things wrong. And the reason is because we have lots of redundant systems in our body that allow us to function just fine when something's just a little bit off. So now you go through life and you have all of these little problems that haven't yet risen to the critical threshold of pain yet. And then you get hit by a car and it exacerbates all of those issues. Well, it's not the car that caused that disc herniation or bulge, right? That thing was probably present before you even had the accident. It's just exacerbated the systems that are acting on that disc bulge or herniation.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Yeah. See, I'm curious about the whole proactive aspect of this.
Yes.
Are you, younger people, moving incorrectly and then the pain just shows up later because you've been doing it for long enough?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When we're young, we can get away with a whole lot more, right? And so those tight or weak muscles become more pronounced as we get older because we've stayed with the same movement habits that have caused them in the first place. And now we add 10 more years of the same movement habits, still don't have pain. And then boom, now some straw has broken the camel's back. So anyone in my clinic who has had any back pain on down to foot pain, everyone learns to walk correctly again. I don't care whether you're 5 years old or 90 years old.
I just learned I don't know how to walk.
Yeah.
Can you give us a couple of examples of bad habits that you see all the time that maybe we're probably doing?
Yeah. Gait pattern. All right. Walking is a huge one because that's what we do a lot of during the day. So it makes sense to get it right. And so one of the most common problems, and if I can take you through this little example of what I mean by systems approach to solving, let's say, back pain, and then this walking example will make a lot more sense. All right. So the most common problem most people have out there is back pain. So here's a little test to see why your back pain is happening. It's really easy. Lie down on the floor with your legs straight. And you're going to do that for about 30 seconds. And those of you listening or watching, just pause right now and do this. All right. Because this will tell you a fundamental pattern of issues that's causing your pain.
Hopefully no one's on the treadmill right now.
Yeah. Or driving. So stop your car. Right. So lie down. Even if you're on a treadmill, stop the treadmill because your back pain is really important. All right. So you're going to lie down on the floor with your legs are straight now, and you're going to feel how your back feels. And that's been about 30 seconds or 60 seconds. Now what you're going to do is you're going to bend your knees so your feet are flat on the floor. All right. And if your back still doesn't feel comfortable, hug your knees to your chest. And you're going to notice which position feels better, back with the legs straight or back with the knees bent. Do either of you have any comment on that? What do you think is going to be the most comfortable position for someone's back?
Fetal.
Feet on the floor.
Feet on the floor. Yes. Knees bent. Right.
Oh, really?
So what's the difference between the two positions? Well, the obvious thing is when your legs are straight, your back is becoming more arched.
Yeah.
And when your knees are bent, your back is becoming flatter to the ground. But we can also think of this as when your legs are straight, you have more forces trying to pull your back into an arch. And when your knees are bent, we've reduced those forces pulling your back into an arch. It may not necessarily be the shape of the spine, but the forces acting on the shape of the spine. So most people listening will say, oh yeah, my back feels a lot better with my knees bent. Okay. So then here's the next thing. Everyone stand up and just listen to what's going on. And most of you who stand for more than a minute will notice that your knees tend to lock backwards or straight. So now that you've noticed that, unlock your knees and feel what just happened to your low back. All right. And if you're not sure, lock the knees again. And you will feel that when you lock your knees, your back is arching more, or you have more forces pulling the back into an arch. So if you tend to lock your knees as a habit throughout the day when you're standing and walking, then this is an easy habit to fix. 10,000 repetitions a day if you're walking 10,000 steps. To unlock your knees is 10,000 repetitions that are no longer hammering your back every time you step or stand. All right. It's very simple. So you asked about habits. So gait training, how people walk is a big deal. It's at the root of most lower body and pelvic and back pain. Oh. So unlocking the knees when you walk will do a lot to get the body working the way it should be when you're walking and solve a lot of pain. That in and of itself is a big game changer for most people.
What are your thoughts on barefoot shoes and then actual barefoot walking? Because I've been doing that for 3 months now, and I've noticed exactly what you're talking about. My knees never lock. You're always kind of on the balls of your toes, walking delicately.
Yes, that's a good observation, Allie. And you're exactly right. One of the things that's causing our knees to lock in the first place is having a thick sole on our shoe. That allows us to extend our foot out in front of us further than we would normally do. And when that happens, it tends to lock the knee back when that occurs. So I'm not saying that you must wear minimalist shoes or walk bare feet, but if you can wear those big, thick shoes if you want to, but just be aware that that's what's happening and change your walking pattern so that it doesn't happen.
Right. Max,
Excellent
quit
point.
laughing at me.
No, it's funny. I heard the terror in Allie's voice because she's been wearing these toe shoes for months, or, the flat footage, one or the other. And I was like, is that working? And she's like, I don't know. I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're on the right track, Allie. It's you're eliminating one of the things that's prompting you to lock your knees.
Yeah.
All right. And so just standing, if your people are still standing, listening, if they've been doing this all this time, locking their knees, what that's doing is turning off the gluteal muscles. Well, as you guys know, the gluteal muscles have many different functions in the body. But one of the critical ones is that it controls the tracking of the thigh bone head in the socket.
Mm.
And what happens when the gluteal muscles are turned off enough is that the thigh bone in the socket starts to move around like a washing machine that's out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts to careen around those edges and can lead to groin issues, hip bursitis issues, piriformis syndrome, SI joint pain, or global hip pain, like that will often be diagnosed as arthritis. But really, what the cause of the pain is, even though those tissues may be irritated, what the cause of the pain is the poor gluteal function that's allowing the femur head to track incorrectly in the hip socket.
We're all just walking around with weak butts.
Some of us are. But really, it doesn't have much to do with weakness, because you guys, right? You squat. We do all of these things to strengthen our butts, right? It's not that it's weak. It's that you're not using it correctly. We can squat and turn on our butts when our knees are bent, but whose butt doesn't turn on when your knees are bent?
Mm-hmm.
We don't walk around like Groucho Marx throughout the day with our knees bent, right? We walk with our knees relatively straight. Well, if we're not training our butt to turn on when our knees are straight, then where's all that strength? What's the use of all of that strength? We've got to use it in the way that we use our bodies. It's great to have, and most people have great butt strength. It's just that they're not using it when they need it the most, which is 90% of the day when you're standing and walking.
Mm.
Yeah,
it's also interesting. I feel like it's a lot of, oh, hey, do you lock your knees? And people are like, oh my God, I do all the time.
Yes.
There must be a lot of like, you don't notice how much of something you're doing, and especially if you don't even know it's bad-ish or whatever, then suddenly it's a big light bulb moment, and then you can be aware of it, and then you can sort of start to, if you don't even realize you're doing something that's hurting you, especially if there's no pain, then that's when it gets cascading and really, really.
Yes. Or even if it is causing pain, there are so many other things that could be causing your pain and that you've been told are causing your pain, that you focus on those instead of something simple like unlocking your knees. And that's because most practitioners don't understand this connection like this. It's a systems. This is why I say I approach things from a systems standpoint, understanding how everything works together to cause and solve pain, rather than a component approach, which is treating a tissue to make it feel better.
How do those British guards stand there all day?
Yeah. I hope they're unlocking their knees.
Do they shift?
Because if they're not, they're having lots of hip, knee, foot, back, or SI joint problems. Yeah.
Yeah. So when one of my big questions was, do you see more problems with athletes or less? But it sounds like it's not, I can just deadlift my way out of this problem.
No. So this is the interesting thing, is that strong people believe that they should be able to strengthen through their issues. Mm-hmm. And loose people, flexible people, think that they should be able to stretch their way through an issue. And occasionally you'll get the strong person who thinks they need to stretch their way through an issue, and vice versa, right? But it's not specific. You don't understand. It's like throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. You don't know what to do. So, it's often not an issue of strength. It's an issue of how you're using your body.
Yeah. So then I keep going back to this idea of proactive. And does anybody come to you and is like, I want to move well without pain? I feel like that's got to be really uncommon.
Very uncommon. Almost no one. Okay. But I see a lot of chronic pain people. Yeah. And we get them out of pain relatively rapidly because I know exactly how they've been treated by other practitioners, which is a component approach. Mm-hmm. And so this is why a lot of people develop a lot of skepticism about even solving their pain, regardless of maybe it's a recurring acute issue, maybe it's a recurring chronic issue, but they become skeptical, especially, if a lowly physical therapist who no one's heard of, thinks that they have the answer, right? But once, and this is the value of test retest, I prove to them that this is what the cause of their pain is. And I get that instant buy-in.
Yeah.
I think, in fairness to them, I think they've been burned by someone.
Oh, yeah. I don't blame them at all.
And then suddenly it's gone, and I think everyone's had a bad experience with,
Oh, yeah, definitely. This is our medical system.
Right.
Our medical system is founded on this idea that evidence is king. And so to generate research evidence, we have to isolate one small thing in the body to study. Because we can't study two things at the same time. Otherwise, how do you know what's making the difference in the research project, right?
Right.
So all of our medical evidence is really geared towards drilling down to one thing, but there's no one that's pulling that one thing back into the system and saying, this is how it works in our system. It's left up to the individual practitioner. Well, if the individual practitioner is more of a manual therapist who believes that they should fix everything with their hands, they're not going to pay attention to movement-based research. And movement-based research will not pay attention to manual research because that's not what they do. So we have these inherent biases in us as medical practitioners as to what we think will work. And so we kind of, that belief system screens out information that could be helpful. And that's why I wrote my books initially to do an end around practitioners to say, hey, look, because a lot of these people are not getting the help that they need, but it's available. That information is out there. And so that's why I wrote the books originally. And then more recently, I've owned my own clinic for about 10 years. So I've seen that this stuff isn't happening like, you're having a problem with this, and then Allie, you're having a different problem with that. Everyone's having a very similar pattern of problems, but they're being manifested differently in different people's bodies based on their training techniques, their genetics, their personal histories, and so forth. But it's the same pattern of problems that are occurring in nearly everyone, like a lock in the knees. Lock in the knees can lead to plantar fasciitis, knee pain, hip issues, SI joint pain, sciatic pain, or back pain, depending on your personal history. But it's the same pattern.
Yeah, no more locking. I'm just going to wear rollerblades all over the place. Never ever lock my knee.
Yeah, so I
just
had
sit in a squat and coast.
Yeah, right. I had this. She was a collegiate swimmer, Division I scholarship, and top of the food chain, and developed back pain while swimming. No one could solve it. She had to eventually give up her scholarship. 15 years later, she shows up at my clinic and for plantar fasciitis, and she hobbles over to my table, and I'm just seeing all the pain in her face. I'm just like, God, that plantar fasciitis must be killing you. And she's like, oh, that's nothing. It's my back that's killing me. But you can't help me with that. I mean, no one can. And nothing gets my hackles up more when someone tells me I can't help them, right? So, and she was in so much pain, I couldn't even do any testing on her. She could barely stand and walk. Oof. So, but fortunately, just watching her walk to my table, I understood exactly what one of the big problems was. She was locking her knees. I taped the backs of her knees to get her to stop doing that. And within 3 days, her back was 75% better, and her plantar fasciitis.
Wow.
And that's the beauty of a systems approach, is that simple solutions have huge ripple effects in the body, just like locking the knees. I know I'm harping on that. That's just one of the habits, but there are others too.
Sounds like it's a big one.
It is a big one.
It's a big one.
Yeah, it is a big one, because it sets up this whole cascade of events in your lower body system that create a lot of dysfunction and pain if left uncorrected.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned taping. I always saw people with tape and said, that's kind of voodoo. It seems like, I don't know, that people are using it as a placebo maybe, but it sounds like it seems useful.
I would tend to agree with you, Allie. I see the taping that's happening out there, and I'm kind of perplexed as to why they're doing it and what it's actually doing. So the taping that I do, I use a different tape. So what you're referring to likely is that KT tape or the kinesio tape.
Yeah.
That's a very stretchy tape, right? So that tape is more towards guiding a movement, perhaps, rather than actually changing something in the body. And so I use a different tape. When I need to tape something more robust, I use something called Cover Roll Stretch and Leukotape P. This tape allows me to control things in the body that KT tape could never do. And I use that a lot initially because people's brains are not used, they don't know how to use their body correctly already. That's why they're here. Taping puts their body into a corrected position, so their brain doesn't have to try and figure this out. Then when they see that their pain is gone with this taping solution, we train the body to adapt that taping solution. And then we can remove the tape and they don't need it again. But the tape gives us a bridge to function if used correctly. And I know a lot of people swear on the KT tape stuff, and that may help some things. But the types of things that I think are at the root of most chronic pain, that KT tape can never really solve.
This sounds a lot like posture correctors. Are those also kind of dumb garbage?
Well, it's not dumb garbage if that pattern of posture correction is needed in you and you can't achieve it otherwise. However, our ideas of posture are taught incorrectly as well.
Oh boy.
So most people have gone to yoga, Pilates, or whatever, and been told you got to squeeze your shoulders down and back into your back pockets to create good posture. Have you guys ever been told this?
Oh yeah.
All
the time, right? It's absolutely the wrong way to do it, because the shoulder blades are not designed to create posture. They are designed for different things altogether.
Pull-ups.
Among other things, pull-ups, yes. So really what's designed to create good posture is your core. But doing 1,000 sit-ups a day isn't going to teach your core how to do it correctly. You can get a strong stomach, but you're just like your butt muscles when squatting. But if you don't use it when you're standing and walking correctly, what's the purpose of having a strong core other than to show off your six-pack abs?
Obviously, Instagram. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It gets you those Instagram pictures and maybe some magazine contracts or something.
Right.
But the shoulders are not designed to create posture. They're designed for upper extremity movement. The shoulder blade is the center of function for the upper body system. And if you look at the architecture of the shoulder blade, it's a broad.
We got a skeleton.
It's a broad, flat bone. There's only one other bone like this in the body. The ilium. Right? The pelvis is our center of function for the lower body system and back. The shoulder blade is the center of function for our upper body system, neck, and head. Using it to create posture is not what it's designed to do. And so that's where everyone gets it wrong. Actually, bringing your shoulders down and back to the opposite back pockets is what is actually causing chronic shoulder, neck, and headaches. We can go into that detail if you want to, but
yes,
since you brought it up, I just felt I had to touch on that.
Okay, we'll get to that. But okay. So how do you use your core to stand?
Yeah. So here. If you guys want to do it, it's really easy. Those of you who aren't driving or running on your treadmill, all right, stand up, and you'll put one hand on your chest and the other hand on your belly. And you're going to take a deep breath in, and you'll feel that your chest is rising. And when you exhale, you'll feel the chest lower again. Can you both feel that?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Take a deep breath in again. This time you can still exhale all the way, but don't let the rib cage come down all the way. It can come down 95% of the way, but not 100%. So if you don't let that rib cage come down all the way, you'll just notice that your stomach muscles have engaged slightly. Can you feel that? Perhaps 5, maybe 10%.
I'm not even standing and I can feel it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So now what your core is doing is holding your posture the way it should, rather than your shoulders. The second part of this, because everyone has tied their shoulders to their posture, is I have them bring their arms down to their sides and now jiggle your shoulders around to loosen them up, to get them out of that equation. And most people who do that will notice that when they do that, they've just lost their core activation. And that's because they've tied their shoulder girdle to posture instead of their core to posture. So when the shoulders relax, they lose everything. So we need to train the core to do it correctly. And you felt it. It doesn't take much. It's like a 5% activation just to hold your rib cage up. It's not a lot, because these muscles are designed in a way that it's not like a biceps muscle where you have to have super strong biceps, right? To do a pull-up. You don't have to have that for the core. It'll turn on all by itself, and just using it correctly will strengthen it in and of itself. Just like walking correctly will turn on the butt and strengthen that adequately.
I'm going to go punch my yogi in the face.
While we're on the topic, another good solution for your posture is just find friends who are a lot taller than you. That's a nice little talk about a mental cue. You're always like, hey, what's up, guys? What are we doing?
Well, that's a great point.
Why do you think we're friends, Max?
Yeah. So if you think about that, how are you going to get taller, Max? You're going to arch your back.
Yeah, big time.
And to get that back even more arched, you're going to lock your knees, right?
Yeah.
So that's where the awareness comes in. You know, yes, you can get taller, but don't arch your back, because we just found out that your back hurts more when your back is arched, right? Why would you arch more then?
Mm-hmm.
But we don't put these things together. That's what I've been doing for these last 25 years.
Yeah. Wow.
All right. So since we started on the shoulder girdle, let's talk about their connection to the neck pain and headaches, because this is a common problem. Allie, you were just pointing to your upper trapezius. Most people,
some big ones,
when they have neck pain or headaches, they say, "Oh man, it's just burning right here," right? And everyone thinks it's their upper trapezius. It is not their upper trapezius. It's the levator scapula, which is deep to the trapezius. All right. So if we know now that our cues to bring the shoulder blades down and back in the opposite back pockets are the opposite of normal shoulder function, what muscles are supposed to lift the shoulders? Well, one is the upper trapezius, but the second one is a deeper muscle called the levator scapula, which starts at the corner of the shoulder blade and goes up into C1 through 4, and sometimes 5. Levator scapula. The name says what it does. It's an elevator of the scapula. So while you're busy depressing the scapula, the little tiny levator scapula is trying to lift it up, because that's its job. But you've trained all of these gravity and all of these big muscles to pull it down. So it's going to be screaming. It's like doing a biceps curl all day long with a 15-pound weight in your hand.
Right. And then
that biceps is going to burn. and it is probably 20 times thicker than a levator scapula. Your shoulder blade system, your shoulder girdle system weighs about 15 to 20 pounds. So there's one little guy trying to lift this whole thing up all day long. Not only just dead weight, but also you're actively pushing it down by depressing your shoulders using those old posture strategies. So this is where a lot of that's what explains that pain. So changing this, and I have ways to change that and all that kind of stuff. And Allie, I use tape to change that. Not kinesia tape, but cover roll, stretch, and look at it. Because it gets, like I said, Scotch tape, whatever's on hand.
Whatever gets your mental cue, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So because no one understands how, first of all, most people don't believe that the shoulder blade has anything to do with their neck pain or headaches. And secondly, how are we going to get them to change it? I have to force it into a better position with tape to prove to them it's like a miracle for most people. So they're just like, I had no idea. You're absolutely right. You did have no idea because none of your practitioners or yoga or Pilates or personal trainers or whoever understands how that shoulder girdle system works in the big scheme of things. We understand the components of things, but we don't understand the system.
Do you find that frustrating that you deal with your patients or clients or whatever, like they've been given so much crappy information?
Yeah. Oh, I used to be one who gave it to them, right? Until I figured this out for myself. So, I don't blame, because that's what's out there on the internet, right? And it's what's being taught in medical schools. It's what's out there on the internet. Everything's feeding each other. There's no new information about this stuff out there. And this is why I'm kind of getting out there now, is because, okay, my orthopedic clinic, I literally bought that as a testing clinic because I wanted to test my theories on a large volume of patients from a large spectrum of ages and types of injuries. And so I've worked out all those nuances, and that's why I'm finally like, okay, it's time to say something, And so that's why, I wrote those books 10 or 12 years ago. Those were nice. That was before I owned my clinic and saw that these were all patterns of issues. And that's why I've created these downloadable home programs. It's a lot faster and more comprehensive than what's in my books, because that will fix the patterns. And so I was only getting frustrated with myself for not speaking out, because it's not my nature to be the guy who's doing this all the time. So I just decided, look, I've got to get over this and get out there a little bit. Otherwise, how can I blame anyone?
Yeah. These courses online, they're all based on like where you're feeling the pain, right? I'm just curious, which one's downloaded the most? What's the most common?
Well, back pain is by far the most. But like the neck pain, headaches, so many people, this is so different than what they've been told. They can't believe that there's a solution to their neck pain and headaches, because, especially that involves the shoulder girdle system. Because, some people with back pain have been said, oh, you got to change your walking pattern and things like that, even though it's fairly non-specific. But to tell people that their neck pain or headaches, chronic, is due to their shoulder blades, no one has ever heard that. Yeah. So that's completely new information that people have a hard time wrapping their heads around.
Yeah, headache seems just so internal, right? That it's got to be in your noggin and you got to take a pill. That's just what seems.
I help people with, migraines all the time, tension headaches. So, there's all these different classifications of headaches, right? Through, if you look at the Cleveland Clinic or Mayo Clinic or things like that. But what I have found is that the same thing fixes all those types of headaches. Fixing the shoulder girdle fixes all of them. So in my mind, a migraine versus a tension headache is just a deeper problem, or maybe a more long-standing problem, or maybe you have some other vulnerability that's making that headache even worse and becoming a migraine. but it's the same. It's all the same due to the same problem. And that's why I talk about fixing a pattern of issues solves a lot of different types of problems. Head, neck, shoulder, fixing the shoulder girdle.
And we talked about knees.
Yeah.
Can we do elbows?
Yeah, of course. All right. So the elbow.
What is tennis elbow?
Well,
or is that just a catch-all for ow?
Yeah. The medical term is lateral epicondylitis. All right. And that's just a muscle in the elbow that lays on top of, it's one of your extensors that lifts your hand like this, and it becomes painful. So here's how I figured out my solution for tennis elbow and golfer's elbow. I had a golfer come to me. He had a big tournament coming up, and he had this tennis elbow. And so I, as a PT, just like, oh, well, we just massage out that epicondylitis. It'll be really painful, but it'll feel a lot better afterwards. Mm-hmm. Then he told me that a surgeon had cut that muscle, though, a year before, and his pain had not changed. So he had completely severed this muscle because it was the cause of pain, but it didn't change this guy's pain. He could barely lift his hand to his mouth. So then I'm left scratching my head, just like you, Max. I'm just like, wow.
Wow, that was really nice of you to scratch your head right in his face.
Yeah. So I'm just like, okay,
man, let me just.
That was my go-to solution. What do I do now? So to stall, I said, hey, let me just see how you're swinging your club. So, and I noticed that he had an odd rotation to his club head. I said, your club head's not supposed to face like that, is it? He said, no, you're supposed to turn it up. And for him to turn it up, he then shifted something in his arm that looked odd. I said, why are you doing that? He said, that's the only way I can do that. So I thought, I instantly remembered that we have these deep rotator muscles in the elbow and forearm. I've never used them before or treated them. Mm-hmm. But I said, you know what? I think you've got a rotation problem. So I stretched out his deep rotators of his elbow and wrist. Lo and behold, his pain was gone within 10 minutes.
Wow.
He could take a full swing, full impact, went to the tournament, no problems. So yes, that's part of that problem, but why were those muscles tight? And that gets into the whole system, right? It's easy to say, oh, for tennis elbow, you must just stretch these muscles. No, you have to understand how the system is making those muscles tight in the first place.
Whoa. That's like life-changing for him.
Yeah.
He can scratch his head now.
Yes, he could. He could eat.
Jeez.
But this is how things work in the body. Everything is connected, and we've all been told that. But no one has really dug down and worked out what these connections are and the meaning of them in terms of pain and solving pain.
It sounded like you did some adjustment on him there. And it also sounds like your books and your videos online are more of me working on myself, right? Can you talk a bit about like active versus passive treatment?
Well, that was an experiment. So I wouldn't call it an adjustment. I just stretched a muscle, right? Yeah. So an adjustment for a lot of people out there will think that I manipulated a spine or a vertebra or a bone or joint or something, which I never do. I never have to do any adjustments because fixing function solves everything. So yes, you're absolutely right, Allie. The solution is because I'm not controlling your body, you are. So ultimately, you're the one who has to fix yourself. And that's why I call my books Fixing You. That's why I call this the Fixing You method, because you are fixing you, not me. I'm just showing you where the problem is. We're not born needing someone to fix us all the time, right? We should be able to fix ourselves if we understand how things work.
What are chiropractors doing?
Well, chiropractors are doing
tricking
what they're trained. No. I mean, frankly,
I heard a sound.
Yeah, I heard a horrifying sound from my body.
Right. So, frankly, chiropractors are doing what they've been trained to do, what their belief system is. And frankly, physical therapy is moving in the direction of chiropractic. More and more physical therapists are manipulating spines and things like that, thinking that is the solution. That's another reason why I'm speaking out about all this, because I believe my profession is going the exact opposite direction of where things should be going. It's more about manipulation and soft tissue, dry needling, all that kind of stuff. It's treating a tissue, but not treating why the tissue is painful. And almost every practitioner will always say, well, we're going to treat the roots of the pain, right? Everyone hears that. They've heard it 1,000 times. But their idea of a root of the pain is different than my idea of the root of the pain. So you as a consumer need to understand where are they coming from when they're talking about root causes. What, their cause, I think, I'm not a chiropractor, so I don't know. And many of my friends are chiropractors, but I believe that they are trained to believe that everything emanates from the spine, that is the source of all dysfunction. And so they treat the spine. So that's where they believe the root cause is. A surgeon will believe the root cause is a torn muscle. A yoga instructor will believe a root cause is, a flexibility strength issue, right? So we're all trained to believe a root cause is a different thing. You as a consumer, unfortunately, have to figure out what is making sense. And your body will tell you that. If you have to keep going back again and again and again, and the solution is temporary, then you're not really getting to the root cause. You should be able to fix something and have it stay fixed if you're using your body correctly.
Let's say hypothetically,
hypothetically,
female has been trying to get a strict muscle up for quite a while and ended up with biceps tendonitis.
Yeah.
What am I doing with my scapula?
Well, I don't know. I haven't assessed your scapula.
Sure.
But what is one of the things that could be contributing to the biceps tendonitis is tight pecs and lats. And so these are internal rotators of the arm bone. The body, especially the shoulder joint, doesn't like internal rotation. All right. Hip joints don't like it. Internal rotation generally equals more compression. And so, that would be my general. And then maybe you have tight forearm rotators too. So that when you're trying to do a biceps curl or a pull up, because your forearm rotators are so tight, they're trying to rotate the elbow and it changes the orientation of the biceps insertion into the elbow joint. Does that make sense? Because now you fix the hand. The hand can't change, nor can the forearm. So the next thing up the chain is the elbow. If you've locked the hand in place on a pull-up or something like that. Now, and if you're lifting heavy weights and you're doing a biceps curl, well, that's almost just like fixing the hand, because it's not like your hand is going to start rotating while you're doing that weight. You've trained it to stay in one position. So that's fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
I can't imagine my pecs being tight sitting at my computer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Also super important. You've been saying biceps this whole time. Have I been saying it wrong? And it's the plural of bicep is biceps, or I mean the singular.
Well, you have a long and short head.
So I like biceps. My one biceps is how you should.
That's
be
why
saying
it's called bi.
Max,
I knew that.
Flex your biceps. You've definitely.
You can refer to it as one because it comes into one, right? And then inserts into your elbow, your forearm.
Feel like a
but
dummy.
There are two heads to it.
Yeah, I'm fixing it. Okay. Anyway, now that we're talking about this, is my very ergonomic working space on my couch in my home office.
Yeah, I see Max's too.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
On the floor.
Luckily, it's not a video. Oh no!
Oh no! Everyone knows that you have a diffuser in your bedroom. So what are your thoughts on ergonomic chairs, sitting on a yoga ball at your desk, those weird looking spring stools out of a cartoon? What do we do in the office?
Well, again, all of those things could be perfect for your body if you understood what was the problem. But the problem is a lot of people don't understand what's wrong with their body. And so they purchase those things thinking that, like I said, throwing spaghetti against the wall to see if that's going to help. Well, if it helps, then great. You've stumbled onto the correct thing. But for a lot of people, they don't help because they're not addressing what the source of the problem is.
Okay.
For instance, sitting on a football, let's say. When you sit on a football, your back tends to arch more, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And we just found out that 99% of people who have back pain, their backs feel worse when their back is arched. So does sitting on a football seem to be the right decision there?
No.
No.
I got one from my mom. I'm pretty sure I gave her sciatica.
2 footballs.
Thanks for keeping me in business, Allie.
Yeah, right.
And then same with the standing desks. If your back hurts more because when your legs are straight and when it's arched, and you just found out that when you stand, you tend to lock your knees, why would a standing desk help your back then? It's perpetuating the problem. So
you need like a hot pad,
knees,
so you can't keep one foot down for too long without it hurting.
Yeah, you could do. You could certainly do that, Allie.
Constant dance while you're
Why
working.
didn't I think of that one before? We'll just get a couple of hot plates underneath each foot. Turn on the burners.
You're welcome.
But you could stagger your stance when you're standing at the desk. Put one leg forward and bend, and put all your weight on that forward leg and bend that knee. That will unload your spine. But most people who stand at their desk don't do that. They stand with their feet in parallel. When your feet are in parallel, it tends to cause you to.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking about those guards again. Those poor guys.
Well,
yeah.
Other than buying your books, what would be a good way for someone to self-assess? Or does it? How does someone step back and look at a system without talking to you?
Well, that's why I wrote my books, and that's why I have my downloadable home programs. So, because you don't know what to think about, this is the problem. Because this is from the component thinking that's been applied to you so far. If you have chronic pain or recurring nagging issues, all of those treatments are component thinking because they haven't really solved the pain. So you can't possibly come up with a whole new way of looking at yourself without being shown what that is. Otherwise, you would have done it, right? So, but to answer your question, the solutions to your pain are found in the things that make it hurt the most and make it feel better the most. Those are giving you clues as to what you're doing wrong. So if you don't want to buy any of my stuff, that's fine. That's where I would start, is just, okay, what is hurting my back the most and what is helping it the most? And now think of that. Okay, this guy was talking about arching my back. Is my back arching more in those situations where it's hurting most? And those situations where my back is hurting less, is it arching less in those situations? So that will start to clue you in as to how you're conducting your life is contributing to your pain. Same with shoulder, neck, all sorts of things. That would be.
I did want to ask about
one way.
Imbalances too. I feel like I got, I don't know, a really big foot or one like short leg and I don't know it. Like, how common is that?
So leg length discrepancies are one of the biggest myths in medicine. In my last 20
I'm perfectly symmetrical. Years, screw you, medicine.
Well, you may not be symmetrical, but your legs may not be unequal. So most people, and in the last 20, 25 years, I probably can count on one hand the number of true leg length discrepancy cases I've ever seen. It's very, very rare. And I check it with just about everybody. And so most people are told they have a leg length discrepancy. If they're standing and their practitioner sees that one hip is higher than the other, one ilium is higher than the other, they assume that must be a longer leg. It is not a longer leg. This is a functional compensation that you've developed, which is why you're having pain. So if you're just measuring leg length from the top of the pelvis down to the bottom of the foot, like that would do, if you're just looking at something like that, you've got the SI joint, you've got the hip joint, you've got the knee joint, you've got the ankle joint, and you've got all of the 26 joints in your foot. All right. That's like 30 joints that you're putting together in one assessment of leg length. All right. Think of that's 30 points of potential error. The way I measure leg length is measuring the leg. So you measure the top of the thigh bone to the bottom of the ankle bone. Now you've just got one joint. When you measure it like this, you'll find that there are no leg length discrepancies, that instead that we have functional compensation patterns that make it look like you've got one leg higher than the other. And I can't tell you how many people I upset by telling them that.
They get mad.
Well, I gave a demonstration one time, and this one brave woman came up because we were talking about this. She says, well, I've got a leg length discrepancy. You can just check it out. Well, yeah, her pelvis was 3 inches higher on one side than the other. Right?
What?
So I showed the whole audience this.
Wow.
Look, there's one side, and I had someone come up and measure it themselves. So they knew that I wasn't lying. And I said, we're going to fix it right here. And we solved it in about 10, 15 seconds. And then her pelvis was level again. She was not happy with me because she had all of her clothes tailored to accommodate that issue. So when we looked down at her pants, her one leg was really baggy and the other one wasn't.
Oh, no.
So she was not happy.
That's epic.
And a lot of people were told to buy heel lifts and special orthotics or
That would make it
all sorts
worse
of things.
Then, right?
Yeah, well, you're only supporting the functional compensation pattern. That's all you're doing.
Jeez.
So
Okay.
there's a long-winded answer to your question, Alan.
So it's not that different sizes are common.
No.
It's that rotation and
Exactly.
compensation is problem.
Yeah,
common.
exactly.
Wow.
That's exactly what's going on with most people. I don't care how
Right.
many people. I mean, I had a woman come in with x-rays of her child to prove that she had leg length discrepancy. I said, no, we corrected it. And her legs were equal length, pelvis, rib cage, everything.
It's
Also,
crazy.
you're welcome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, she wasn't very happy. There were some interesting dynamics going on there.
Sorry. Wait, was this you said it was at a seminar?
Well, the first one was. The second one was a
Okay.
patient that came in
Got it.
with their
But at the
x-rays.
seminar, how epic. And then everyone's watching and you
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
transformation.
Yeah. Well, that's why I like speaking live, is because I showing these things is so much more meaningful than just talking about these things. And that's why, we did the test for the back pain here, is so people can feel the truth in their body rather than just hearing my words and saying, oh, that makes sense, and then go on with their day and not do anything about it. If you can show people and blow them away with a demonstration like that, they're going to be like, holy smokes, this is how this works. And they're going to change something. That's meaningful.
Right. Wow. That's so cool. Okay. I have one more
Oh yeah.
super important thing that I want to
Whatever.
know about.
I'm
What is the
here as long as you want
definitive
me.
best sleeping position?
There is none.
What?
You need to fix the body that's going to bed rather than fixing how you're sleeping. Now, there's some positioning that you can do with pillows to offload areas. But I find that if I can return people to their normal way of sleeping, whatever their normal pattern is, and they can sleep that way without pain, they will heal much more quickly than adopting an unnatural sleeping position. because then you're just tossing and turning all night, right? You're going into it and, oh, I got to get back out of that. Oh, it's hurting. And then you get back out of that and you go drift back into it. Your body wants to sleep in that position. We've got to figure out how to make you successful there.
Huh. So just wherever you end up is going to be right if you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we've had people on that have said it's definitely back. And then we've had people on that said back is terrible. It's definitely side.
Right. Notice that
you're doing the side wrong.
Right.
And then like one of the founders of 8 Sleep was like, I sleep on my stomach. I don't know.
Right.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. You can, we have ways of getting people to sleep however they want to sleep. So
Standing,
wherever you want to sleep is the right way.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, fascinating.
And this sounds complicated. It's not. It's really simple. It's really simple to figure this stuff out and solve it. And that's what puts a lot of people off, because they've been to a ton of other practitioners and they've been given probably 1,000 different exercises or things to do or ways to do it or whatever. And none of it's worked. They think with all of that failure that, I'm a really hard case. This is going to take. No, it's not going to take forever, and it's not going to be very complicated. My pain reduction videos for back and sciatic pain, I think there were maybe 6 exercises that I have people doing to fix the major things that are causing most back and sciatic pain. It's simple. You don't have to spend a ton of time or whatever on this. So,
yeah, definitely counter to everything we expect.
Yeah, past failure is not an indicator of how successful you will be. It's the opposite of that investing, right? Yeah. Past results are no guarantee of future returns.
Yeah.
As it applies to past failures, there's no basis for future returns.
We always ask every health and fitness person about alcohol. Maybe I'm reaching here. Is this a stretch that, does alcohol have any effect on your movement patterns? Have you seen any of that, or am I
not particularly? Not particularly. So this gets a little bit into my overarching theory of chronic pain, is that everyone has their threshold of pain. Some people's are higher, lower, whatever. You've got a threshold. So there are basically 3 things that are pushing us up towards that threshold. One is musculoskeletal issues, which is my specialty. The second are things that we ingest, our diet, allergens, mold, things like that cause an inflammatory response in the body. And the third are emotional trauma or other psychological, spiritual issues that cause stress or anxiety or whatever in the body too. So some people are just musculoskeletal, others are a combination of 3, and everyone has a different level, but usually some component of all 3 of those is at the root of really the most difficult chronic pain. But most chronic pain that I treat in my clinic can be, eliminated just by correcting the musculoskeletal issues. So when you talk about alcohol, well, maybe alcohol is, if you have an allergic response to alcohol in some way, your body doesn't process it well, that would then create, an inflammatory response. Mm-hmm. So it could be one of your elements. Yeah. Who knows? But that's not something I key on.
Well, this is fascinating. I would love for you to write a book about how to proactively stop all of these things, and no one will buy it but me. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I've done something better than that. I've created an online training program to teach health and wellness practitioners how to look at the body like this and solve pain. So it's not only for PTs, it's also for anyone from a coach up to a doctor, personal trainers, Pilates, yoga, whatever, because it's not difficult to understand this information and implement it. And I believe most people who have pain will come to you guys first, right? they're going to come to a personal trainer, a yoga instructor, a Pilates instructor, a coach, something like that first before they come to someone like me. I'm way down the road, right? So is a doctor. And so I feel that you guys are the front lines of stopping chronic pain happening in its tracks. And so I've geared that program for not only for physical therapists and doctors, but I've made it simply kind of like how I've been speaking to you today. It hasn't been too complicated, right? This isn't a whole bunch of medical terms and muscles and things that you have to memorize to know all this stuff. You just need to understand how it all fits together. And so that's at healpatientsfaster.com. And for physical therapists out there, in most states in the US, I offer 30 CEU credits for that course, which is huge.
Nice.
So, and I also offer the documents for other health care practitioners to submit to their certifying agencies or licensing boards to, see what credits they would get for CEUs. So, because awesome. I feel like we should be able to stop this. I really do. I feel like if we're all on the same page, we can stop this chronic pain stuff from happening. And then people will be lining up at your door because they know that you can solve pain, which is the most common complaint with almost all athletes and non-athletes.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much for chatting with us.
This is awesome.
Oh, sure.
So we got that website. Where else can the fitheads find you online?
If they just go to rickolderman.com, that has all of my stuff on there. So you can find, I've got a book that's coming out next year. All of my programs, the blog and free stuff on there, all sorts of stuff. And nice. if your listeners type in Fixing You, all one word, they'll get 20% off of whatever they buy, whether it's my training program or the downloadable home program to solve their pain.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again,
sure.
I'm going to go unlock my knees.
Yeah. Good.
And thank you to the fit heads.
Get all of your, all of your students to do the same.
Yeah, love it. Yes.
Everyone will
pay attention, fit heads. Unlock
right.
your knees, and also go rate and review us on iTunes because it helps us out a whole lot. And we'll see you next week.